Hey y'all! In today's video, we're going to go through a few tips and tricks when it comes to working with text in the Vectric software. But before we get started, let me remind everybody that I am in no way sponsored nor endorsed by Vectric Limited nor any other software company. I'm doing this series of videos to help the person who has never done anything like this before get into the software, start and finish a project from within the software. I've had several questions lately about working with text, and some of them may seem a little basic, but others get a little more advanced. So I thought I would go ahead and compile a list of questions that I get quite often and try to address them in one video. So let's go ahead and get started by creating a new file. And I'm going to go ahead and use the most popular size of sign I cut. And that is 14 by about 11. Now that dovetails in nicely with a standard Select Pine 1 by 12 that I can get at my local big box store. Not construction grade, but the Select Pine, which has been kiln dried. It's for use. I hesitate to call it furniture grade, but it's very close to furniture grade. What I tend to do is, for a 14-inch long sign, is I'll add 1 inch to each end, which gives me plenty of room for mounting screws to mount it to my spoil board. So for the width in X, I'll enter 16 inches. And for my height in Y, a 1 by 12 is actually 11 1/4 inches. So I will use 11.25. The nominal thickness is 3/4 of an inch. It may be plus or minus a little, but we'll go with 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm going to use my XY datum position in the center. I always zero when I'm carving something like this. I always zero on the material surface. And for a VCarve project, we can use standard modeling resolution. I'll switch over to Pine because that's what my material is going to be. Now, this is actually only going to be in a 3D view, which we're not going to use in this project. But anyway, I'll go ahead and use Pine for the demonstration. Go ahead and click OK. One of the more common questions I get is working with text running vertically. So let's go over here into the Draw Text window under Create Vectors. Give it a second to load the font list. And let's pick a rather plain here. Let's go with Arial because everybody's got it. Will you go ahead and use Arial font? Now, in this orientation, it's just a standard left to right font. I can align my text to the left. I can align it to the center. I can align it to the right. Okay, I prefer to go with the center. I'm going to anchor my text on my X0, Y0. And that's going to place the center of my text right here on the line. I'll come up here and I'll enter some text. I'll go ahead and hit caps lock because I want all capital letters. And I'll type just something generic here that everybody can relate to. Now that's excellent as far as a piece of horizontal text is concerned. We'll go ahead and close it. Then I'll throw you a little tip here, a little trick. If you were to want to change the orientation of this text, you can hit the number 9 on your keyboard and rotate this text 45 degrees at a time. So if I hit it twice, I've made the text run from the bottom up to the top. If I want to reverse it, go the other direction, I'll hit the number 0 on my keyboard, and it will rotate the object 45 degrees at a time. So I can rotate it, hit that button twice, make it run from the top down. Now you're not limited on this. You can keep hitting the number 9 as many times as you'd like, and it'll just keep rotating at 45 degrees per press. And this is the number buttons that are running across the top of the keyboard, not the number pad, not the keypad off to the right. So that's one way of creating vertical text, is to spin it using the number buttons on the keyboard. Another way is with the font, with the text selected, click it a second time, then use these black squares here to rotate the text as we're moving. And you can fine-tune, fine-adjust this. And if you don't want it specifically at 45 degrees, you can turn it like such. You can spin it around like so if you'd like. Let me show you another little trick here. That is, if we select the text and come up here under Transform Objects to rotate selected objects and click that, you'll see this little center point here that looks like a target. That's the pivot point, meaning that if I grab hold of one of these black boxes right here and drag it around, it's going to pivot on that point. A little known fact is you can put your cursor over that pivot point, click, and drag that pivot point somewhere else. So if I want to pivot based on this corner of the letter M, I can move that pivot point. Then when I come over here and grab this box, it pivots on that corner, leaving that corner placed where we had it. So just another little trick to use from within the software. We can move that pivot point to wherever we'd like and pivot that text or any object from wherever we place that pivot point. Another question I get asked a lot when it comes to vertical text is, load up my text here, some folks have fonts in their font catalog that have these little @ symbols in front of the font name. And this is a neat little trick within the software. That little @ symbol is a signal to VCarve that this is a vertical font. Now, when I select this font name here, I'm going to use Arial Unicode. Watch what happens to this box right here. I'll select this font and my box turns sideways. That's because VCarve now sees this as a vertical font, so everything I type in here is going to be aligned to the top left corner of that box. So let's go ahead and drag that box up so that we can see all of my text here. And I'll go up and I'll type the same slogan. And we see that we have vertical text. That's another way of doing this, of getting text run vertically. Now, if you don't have any fonts with the @ symbol before the name of the font, that's fine. Again, you can use your 9 key and your 0 key to rotate that font however you want it, whatever works for you. To be honest, I don't have any fonts in this list with that little @ symbol that I don't also have down below without the little @ symbol. So I don't use them much. But if you should get to the point to where you want to experiment and play with them, that's what that little @ symbol means. It tells VCarve that this is a vertical font. Now, having your vertical text oriented this way is fine, but what if you want all of these letters rotated to where the M is standing up, the A is standing up, the K is standing up, etc., etc.? For that, there's another little trick over in the text editor. I'll go ahead and delete this, and we'll go back over here to text, let it load, and I will go back down to a standard Arial font. That's good right there. I'll set it to the center. I want to align it to the center. And I'll go ahead and I'll enter the same slogan here, again with caps lock on. But after I type each individual letter, I'm going to tap Enter on my keyboard. Whoops. Then we'll close that. I'll move my text up here so that we can see it, and it's still going to be too big to fit on my material. So I'll go back into the text editor, and I'll change my size down to 3/4 of an inch. That'll do for our purposes right now. Now, if I want to go ahead and place this off to the side over here, because it's a text object, I can still do some kerning and spacing, because right now it just looks like it's all one word. So I'll select the text, come over here to Edit Text Spacing and Curve, select that, and we'll move up here in between the M and the A, and I want to tighten that up a little bit. Now you see where it says line, then it has an arrow, then another arrow, then line. The way those arrows are pointing, the tips of those arrows, is which direction this text is going to move. So if I go in here and click, you'll see it's tightening up that space. If I need to open up that space and spread these letters apart, I'll hold down the Shift key and you see how those arrows change. I can make that gap between them wider. I don't want to make it wider, I want to make them closer together. So we'll go ahead and click that a couple of times, and then we'll click this a couple of times. Looks about even. And keep going here. Now I don't want to close these up because I want this word to be separate from this word. I'll come between the I and the T and click, 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 kind of tighten that up, then come down here and tighten that up. So we have 3 separate distinct words with decent spaces in between. To get out of this mode, come back over here under Edit Objects to my selection mode, click there. Now I can still resize to better fill my material, and I have vertical text that's readable from the top to bottom without turning your head to the side. Sometimes there is the need to make text fit within a piece of artwork or within a vector. If I want a piece, for instance, over here in this corner, and I want that text sized to a particular size, what I can do is I can draw a rectangle over here. Let's do that right now. I'll draw this rectangle started here, expand it out right there, and I can see that, well, my rectangle is 7.1. I want it 6 inches wide in Y, and I want it 6 inches wide in X, 4 inches tall in Y. Click Apply. close. Now with this rectangle selected, I can come over to this text, draw text within a vector box, click on it, select a font. That's good enough. And you'll see that I don't have any choice here on my text height or my text width. What VCarve is going to do is it's going to size the text to fit within that box based on how many letters I start typing up here in my text box. I'll show you what I mean here. Click up here in the text blank and start typing. And you'll see as I type, it adjusts the size of the text to fit within this vector box here. Now I have it set to align to the center. I can have it aligned to the left. There's no visible difference. Aligned to the right. There's no visible difference. That's because of my margin size down here. It's running a normal sized margin between the rectangle and the letters that make up the text. If I get rid of the margin size, it expands the text to where they're touching the outside limits of this rectangle. That gives me a piece of text of a known length. So if I need a piece of text that's 6 inches long, that's how I do it. I make a box the size I want, then run my margin size to 0. Now I can also come over here and I can stretch that text vertically. I can stretch the characters to make it approximately the same size as that rectangle. Not exactly, there's still a little bit of a gap here. But that's because the letter S and the letter O are slightly taller than these characters here within this font group. Now, that's kind of unreadable to me. I mean, I can read it obviously, but I would prefer to have no vertical stretch and just make it so, as it were. So that's another way of manipulating text to get text of a specific size or to fit it within a vector. Then once I'm finished with that, I can go ahead and delete my rectangle, but I have my text of a specific size in a specific place. Just simply by drawing that rectangle, placing it where I want the text, sizing the text within that rectangle to the proper size, then delete the rectangle. There are also a few little tips and tricks that you can play with within the text by converting it to curves. Let me go ahead and draw some text here. We'll do something a little bit bolder. Well, I'll just go ahead and use the Arial Baltic and I'll make it bold. And I'll go ahead and anchor my text on my 0, 0. I'll go ahead and make my text height 1 inch again. And we'll say, make it so, and we'll close it. So I basically have just the standard font. Now I want to resize this a little bit so that I get a little bit better view of what's going on. So I'll hold down Shift, click on this white box and kind of expand it to fill a little bit better. And there we go. Now, in this condition, it is treated as a single text object. And I'm kind of limited as to what I can do. I can apply text to a curve, I can adjust the spacing and apply it to a curve this way as well. But in order to do anything really special with this text, I can't do much editing down here with it because it's treated as a single text object. What I'll need to do is I'll need to convert it to curves. And there are two ways of doing this. One is to select the text, then come up here to convert to curves. Click on that icon, and you can see we went from the solid pink line to the dotted pink lines. And what that did was it made each one of these characters independently editable. Now, something to remember is, in the case of the letter A here and the letter O here, we have also separated the center from the outline. So any editing that we want to do, we'll need to remember to select both the inside and outside of the character. Now, what can I do with this? Well, there are a few things that we can do. Let's say we decide we don't really like these squared off corners here. We'd like to round them over. What I'll do in this case is go ahead and select all of these vectors, because that's what they are now. They're no longer text objects. They're separate vectors that are editable just like anything else. And I'll come over here to offset. Now, bear with me for just a second here. I want to offset these vectors inwards by 0.03125, and I'm going to delete the original. I don't want to create sharp offset corners, and I don't want to select the new vector. I want to delete the original. So we'll offset that inwards, click Offset. Now we see how it's rounding off these corners here. Now with that done, I'll select it again and offset outwards the exact same amount. Offset, close. Now when I zoom in, what that has done is that has rounded off all of these outside corners. And we've basically created a custom font. It's a small, subtle change, but it could mean the difference depending upon the pattern and depending upon the design that you're looking for. Well, we can do other things as well. We can get in here and play around with this, select it, click on it again, and I'm going to make this size a little bit larger this way, but anchor it at this corner. Then I'll take, remembering to select both inside and outside, then click it again, then come over to this side, shrink that down just slightly. Click on this one, and in order to tighten up this corner here, because I've just separated these letters, I'm just going to use my cursor keys, the arrows on my keyboard. So I'll cursor left and just kind of nudge that over until it looks about right, about even. Yeah, that's about even. Then I'll come over here to this one and shrink it down a little bit, slide it straight over. There we go. And I can manipulate and play with these letters, make them different sizes, play with their orientation just slightly, and just generally customize as I see fit. Let's scoot that over just a little bit so that those aren't touching. Oops, remember to select both inside and outside. Let's rotate this one this away and leave this one straight up and down, but scoot it over just a bit. So you see what I'm getting at. When you want to make customizations such as this, converting them to curves is the way to go. Something to remember about these vectors after we have converted text to curve is that if we decide we need to open up space or close up space, kind of do a little bit of kerning here, we can no longer use the edit text, spacing, and curve. If we select the text and come up here to click it, it blacks out. There is no text object there for us to be able to use any kerning. So what we'll have to do instead is select the vectors and again either select them, then click on them again and move them this way, or use our cursor keys to move the text. So in the case, if I wanted to spread these out just a little bit, I would select these three and give them a bump, deselect, select those two, give them a bump, deselect, select this one, give it a bump. You can no longer do your kerning, your spacing with this tool. You'll have to do it as you would any other vector. Let's take some of the things we've just learned and introduce a few more things into the mix and create a project. It's a fun little project that I think some of you will get a kick out of. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a rectangular vector here that's going to give us the boundaries of the sign. Because remember, this piece of material is 16 inches long. I want to create a 14-inch long sign, about 11 inches tall. So we'll go ahead and we'll come up under Create Vectors, and we'll draw a rectangle. I want to anchor that rectangle by the rectangle center. I want it anchored on my X0, Y0. I want square corners, and I want the width of my sign to be 14 by 11. So we'll create that rectangle. We'll hit close. Now that is the size of my finished sign. This is going to be my profile cutout. Now I want to enter some text in this sign, but I don't want to size it to this rectangle. I just want to create 2 lines of text. So let's find a little bit better font. Let's go with something. I want something blocky, but nice and thick. Well, I'm going to go with Berlin Sans. Select that, and I want 2 separate lines of text. I don't want them to be one sentence across. So let's take my box and we'll drag it up here, and again with my caps lock on, I'll type plan, hit enter, ahead. That gives me 2 lines of text, and they're sized based on what I have here. I'm going to change that. So we'll close this. I'll go ahead and I'll center this down here. Then I want to kind of drag this out, make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, I kind of like that size. There we go. We're now centered within my material. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to make this line of text a little bit different size from this line of text. So with my text selected, I'll right-click and come down to Break Text Blocks into Lines. And I'll click that, and now this text is separate from this text. So I can now move this text up slightly, hold down Shift, drag that out nice and large, click off. Take this text and we'll move it down slightly, but still keeping it centered left to right. Then I will again hold Shift. Nope, come on. Hold Shift, click on that. Well, come on. There we go. And kind of drag this out like so. Kind of drag that down like so. Then move it down below. Kind of bump it a couple of more times. Now, what did I just do? Well, for those of you with a sense of humor, I'm not even going to bother trimming it. I just created a little joke sign that I'm going to hang up in my shop. Let's go calculate some tool paths. I'm going to select this text, hold down Shift, select that text, and I'm going to do a simple pocket. My material is 3/4 of an inch deep, but I want to cut that 0.1. For an end mill, I want a little bit tighter corners. I'll go ahead and use an 1/8 inch end mill. I'm going to accept everything as it is. I'll use a larger area clearance tool. I'll use a 1/4 inch end mill to clear out these large areas here. And let's just go ahead and calculate those tool paths. We'll go ahead and select the clearance, and I'll change the tool path color to black so you can see it. Same with the pocket. Change that to black. I'll make the material pine, so it's a little bit more realistic. Then I'll preview all tool paths to get both of them here. Okay, some of you are already jumped ahead of me and you see what I'm getting ready to do. Now we'll come over, deselect the text, grab our profile. I want to use a 1/4 inch end mill. I want my cut depth to be all the way through the material, so I'll type Z plus 0.005 because I want it to cut all the way through and then some a little bit. Type equals, does the calculation for me. And I want it to cut outside the vector. Let's go ahead and just call this profile cutout. I forgot I had caps lock on. Cutout. Calculate. It's warning me that it's going to cut all the way through the material. That's okay, I want it to. Now we'll preview that tool path. Double click to get rid of my waste. And that gets the message across. Just a fun little project that you could cut out, hang in your shop should you choose to do so, and the right people will get it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. This was just to answer a few specific questions I had dealing with what the little @ symbol meant at the beginning of the font name, with positioning fonts before and after you convert them to curves, to drawing a font, drawing some text within a boundary box, and a few other little tips and tricks like splitting some text into 2 separate lines. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up down below. And if you'd like to follow along with my further adventures in CNC, I do hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. But whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and y'all take care.